Thank you, I really don't deserve that, and my role is very minor. Pyn da, chroeso cynnes nôl I chi. Gobeithio na chi fwynhau bwyd. Ydych chi'n barod rwan am brynhawn diddorol iawn. So, my name is John Kerry-Williams, and I'm the executive producer of Theatreolo, but I've also been a member of the Arts Council of Wales's Council for the past 7 years. And it is my lucky honour today to introduce our next keynote speaker, Dr. Phil George. Now, he's already been on the stage a few times already today, but he's deserving now of a fuller introduction. So, Phil was the founder of the award-winning television company Green Bay, and has also enhanced our cultural life as head of arts, music and features for BBC Wales. Yet it's for his sterling work as the founding chair of National Theatre Wales that he's perhaps best known to the majority of us here today. A proud son of the Rhondda Valley, Phil was educated there and at Christ Church College, Oxford. He also holds an honorary doctorate from the University of South Wales, and in 2011 received the Inspire Wales Award for his work both at National Theatre Wales and at Green Bay. I first met Phil in April this year when he became chair of the Arts Council, and in those few short months, I've been really struck by his energy, enthusiasm, and passion for the arts. Phil has a strong, demonstrable personal dedication to public service, is really determined to ensure that the whole of Wales benefits from the arts, whether as audience members or as active participants, and is committed to widening the arts' reach through excellence, boldness, and innovation. Felly, mae'n blesed gen I fi gyflwyno ein cadeirydd ni, Dr. Phil George.
Wel, prynawn da. Gobeithio I chi gael hwyl yn sesiynau'r bore ac I chi gael cyfle I rwydweithio a roi'r byd yn ailddu dros ginio. Good afternoon, and I hope you found this morning's workshop stimulating and useful, and that the ecology of the arts in Wales proved to be well joined up and interconnected across lunchtime. In these turbulent, disturbing and bizarre days for the presidency of the United States of America, it's good to look back at the speeches of a previous holder of that office and hear these words from JFK, from John Kennedy. And I won't do a kind of American Springfield imitation of the Boston accent. If art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his or her vision wherever it takes them. I'll say it once more. If art is to nourish the roots of our culture, society must set the artist free to follow his or her vision wherever it takes them. That's a great manifesto for the work of publicly funding the arts, and I absolutely stand by it. But today's focus has been on widening access to creating art and to enjoying the creations of others. In fact, the Cabinet Secretary Ken Skates went further, as I shall later in this speech, to talk about the particular interventions the arts can make in areas like education, health, regeneration, and tourism. Now, let's be honest. The sound of this discourse about cultural value and social benefits, you remember the warning from Francois this morning, makes some people in the arts troubled and uncertain about the future of risky, imaginative, critical, and visionary arts practice. You hear concerns being expressed that the arts are only being valued for their contribution to social purposes, to priorities in government policy, to economic development. So when I stand before you to advocate both for a focus on wider reach in the arts and for some thrilling possibilities of bringing artistic vision and creativity to bear on key areas of social improvement, I want to be clear where we start as a funding body and development agency for the arts. What are our first principles? We believe that creativity and artistic reflection should be at the heart of a truly humane, vibrant, and healthy society. And let's also remember and celebrate the importance of the arts as sources of challenge, surprise, provocation, and resistance. At least as far back as Plato, ruling elites have been troubled by artists and sought to harness them to their purposes. It's also worth remembering that some defenders of high culture have been disturbed by both new movements in the arts and by the demands and interests of social classes beyond their rarefied circles. Matthew Arnold's 19th century defense of classical cultural values was right to emphasize excellence, rigor, and depth. But he could not have imagined Il Trovatore or Bach's Christmas Oratorio being performed and valued as they were in the working class valleys of the 1920s and 30s. Or the power of a great European text like Mother Courage being brought alive in Merthyr Labour Club by National Theatre Wales in 2015 with an all-female cast, a chorus of local women who are still making work, and songs earthily referencing karaoke and country and western. These energies and these subversions have been given new focus by the contemporary ferment in the digital space and the possibilities it offers of empowering the active and creative citizen. So we begin with the primary value of the arts for human society and a recognition of their independent and critical energies. In fact, it's my conviction that liberating those energies is precisely what produces the social and economic benefits we all seek. But, an impulse, a principle follows this first one as surely as day follows night. If we believe in the value and transformative, imaginative power of the arts, whoever is doing the transforming, by the way, and I agree with Francois, those involved in the publicly funded arts should want to reach and transform and help people transform themselves, the lives of more and more diverse people. It follows naturally. So let me be clear again about that. We shouldn't do this by one-size-fits-all approaches. Different artists, different companies and organizations, different venues have different offerings and imperatives. And we shouldn't do it by only supporting arts ventures that have the easiest or most direct route to wider engagement. We should and do support and seek a diverse, innovative, bold, and excellent arts ecology. But we should definitely and emphatically be asking the question about how our work can reach out more widely and more diversely in Welsh society. When the UK government's Culture White Paper was published in March this year, it was sharply criticised by The Guardian, which saw a great deal of deadening instrumentalisation at work. and it was compared unfavorably with the language and vision of Jenny Lee's trailblazing white paper of 1965. But it was Jenny Lee who emphasized in her paper the crucial importance of securing, and I quote, the involvement of large sections of the community hitherto given little or no opportunity to appreciate the arts. And she went on to warn in words that ring a bell of judgment sounding across the decades that the exclusion of so many for so long from our cultural heritage can become as damaging to the privileged minority as to the underprivileged majority. I'm not sure I would have used the word heritage, and I'm not sure I'd have been that worried about the privileged minority, but you get her point. The Warwick Commission in 2015 pointed out the totally unacceptable statistics. Totally unacceptable. That the wealthiest, better educated, and least ethnically diverse 8% of society make up nearly half of the live music audience and approaching a third of theatre goers and gallery visitors. It also noted a downward trend in participation levels in the arts. Now, there's evidence that we're doing better in the demographics in Wales. In the independent survey done by Beaufort Research for the Arts Council of Wales in 2015, you could obviously see the higher take-up of the ABC1 social group, with 93% of them attending an arts event at least once a year, and 54% taking part. But the percentages for the C2DE group were still 79% attending and 33% taking part. And with the exception of the over 65s, the figures for age, gender, and for BAME groups are very close to the social group averages. Now, obviously, the figures change when you dig into the detail, when you take out cinema attendance, or when you press beyond a small number of attendances a year and find out who attends a lot. But there is some encouragement there. And there's a very high level of public support for public funding and the public value of the arts in making Wales a more interesting and vibrant place to live. We know this. Tell your politicians. Massively over 80%. And these views, caught in the Beaufort research, were borne out by the results of the recent What Next Cardiff and What Next Valleys 24-hour culture survey. But no one can come away from these various reports and research exercises with any sense of complacency or any conclusion other than that social inequalities are still marked in the spread of arts experiences across our society. And yet I meant what I said this morning when I offered celebration as well as challenge today. There is so much to celebrate here in Wales. Obviously, in the extraordinary work being made and produced and performed and toured. Somebody said to me once about the night out scheme that his life had been changed by one such touring performance happening in a small village. Turned his life upside down. Just one performance, one show, one tour. But crucially, we celebrate today the work of engagement that's being done. And I hope you'll forgive me roll calling some of what's being done to increase and diversify engagement with the arts, much of which I've had the privilege of visiting and seeing in my first 6 months in post. It's always a bit invidious to give examples, because I won't be able to mention other equally good work, but the alternative is to get very abstract. So forgive me. And some of you will come up later in this speech, I promise. but I do know what it feels like. I've sat there representing National Theatre Wales. When's he going to mention us? There's crucial work being done by our community arts organisations, up and down and across Wales. I recently spent the day seeing Head for Arts work in Blaen, calling in on a ukulele group and other arts activities in a community's first centre, seeing the work supporting a local leisure and culture trust, visiting our Ideas, People and Places project with Tai Calon Housing on the Tredegar St George's estate, and hearing about tableau made from biscuits in a biscuit factory, mixing immigrant and locally born workers. And I've heard similar powerful stories of distinctive, high-quality community arts work in both our national languages across Wales, opening up lives and personal horizons and collective activity. And of course, it's not just designated community arts organisations, because crucial work is being done by venues in their local communities. You saw that from the beginning of today in the opening video. Pontio, reaching out to young people in its surrounding area and in key places like Bethesda, not just working in the Bangor area. Aberystwyth Arts Centre, hosting and supporting participation from across Ceredigion. Theatr Clwyd's Justice in a Day project, which I saw the follow-up in rehearsal of last week, addressing youth offending. Oriel Wrexham's Shepherd's Hut construction and venue creation with Kaya Park residents on the estate in Wrexham. In Swansea, the New Glyn Vivian will transform involvement with the visual arts across the city. And in Cardiff, we'll be hearing later about Sherman 5 from Guy O'Donnell. And a major commercial venue like the WMC, the Wales Millennium Centre, has very significant engagement and outreach work, partly enabled, as are other aspects of its creativity, by its Arts Council relationship and support. We know you can have a ball with Mamma Mia, but the thousands reached across Wales with its community work are not so well publicised. I'd quite like to see 18,000 people put in the glass on the front. That's what you see at the Roundhouse in London, reaching 3,000 young people in Camden. Where do we shout this? Traditional marketing just tells you what the next big show is. It often doesn't shout extraordinary achievement being done and made in engagement. And then there are the companies of all kinds, many of you here doing crucial inclusion and empowering work with schools, people with disabilities, and out on the street in orchestral and world music, music theatre, and dance. In dance alone, just think of the groundbreaking work of Rubicon, Ballet Cymru, Dance Blast, and Jukebox Collective. And there's the hugely significant work being done by our national companies, bringing access and art form excellence together. Access and art form excellence together in partnerships worked out in so many places. National Dance Company's involvements with other dance organisations and its Dance for Parkinson's sessions. National Theatre Wales' 1,000 team members. 1,000 volunteer creatives networked and supported by the company, who collaborate in the company's work and mount events in communities all over Wales. Literature Wales' Young People's Writing Squads, and the work of Young People's Laureate Sophie McKeon, whose work featured so strongly in the recent Aberfan Memorial event at the WMC. And it was thrilling to see the stunning youth and community piece Camilla Tonan performed in the round by Welsh National Opera in the Barry Memorial Hall. Speaking to all our national companies and organisations, I'm struck by their desire to match the excellence of their high-end work with a wider, more inclusive reach. And the time is right to push ahead with even closer relationships between the nationals and our community-focused organizations and venues who have so much knowledge and experience on the ground. They don't need to duplicate or get in each other's way or do what the other should be doing, but there's a better dialogue to be had from both directions. Busy people, but it should be had. So there's a huge amount of work to celebrate and a huge potential for doing more by getting even better connected with each other. Now I want to turn, as I promised I would, to initiatives for the arts in schools and colleges, in health centres and hospitals, in regeneration and the built environment. And I want both to celebrate terrific achievements and to look ahead to new initiatives. And what I want to emphasize as a headline across all this range of activity is that it is and will be driven by artists being themselves. Whether it's the internationally renowned artist Bedwyr Williams in the teaching and learning of a North Wales school, or Volcano Theatre Company in the regeneration of Swansea High Street. It's precisely the distinctive and visionary perspective of the arts practitioners that makes a difference. They need to listen and respond to teachers, pupils, housing executives, and tenants. But they need, above all, to be themselves. One of the great good news stories emerging in Wales, and I'm fed up to the eye teeth of network news always telling basket case stories about Wales in health and education. Well, pin back their ears and listen to this one. One of the great stories is the extraordinary development of the creative learning through the arts program, or CLTA, which we're running in partnership with the Welsh Government. We're hugely heartened by the evaluations of Year 1, which has now reached over 270 schools. The groundbreaking nature of the project has attracted the attention and the admiration of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, particularly in its creative and critical thinking skills program. And the name of that program gives a clue to the nature of the opportunities and challenges ahead. Creative and critical thinking. Of course, we know that improvements in levels of literacy, numeracy, and digital competence will be crucial to measuring the success of the new curriculum. And in CLTA, we riskily, some people said madly, committed to auditable outcomes on these measures, and are all already seeing significant impacts from the first year's interventions. People going up levels in their reading and literacy. But it's worth reflecting on the importance of creative and critical thinking in OECD and, believe it or not, in its PISA survey. My main purpose is to commend to you all the transformative power of the work of artists working with teachers and pupils in CLTA, and to see it as a trailblazer for the educational approach enshrined in the new Welsh curriculum that will be fully in place by 2021. We're talking about a curriculum centered on creativity. A whole curriculum centered on creativity, experiential learning, and cross-subject project work. A learning experience which is not completely split up into the traditional gobbets and silos of separate subjects. One where specialist teachers work across subject disciplines and collaborate with each other. That approach is seen as the future of learning. It replaces top-down teacher instructs pupil, with shared learning and exploration. And based on the practice of artists, creative agents, and teachers being forged in CLTA, we are now talking about embedding arts practice and arts teaching in the whole curriculum, In the end, we're not so much about defending expressive art subjects on their own and separate, as advocating for the arts and the difference the power of the imagination can make to human development, a sense of personal value, and empathy with others in the experience of our learners. And I want to pay tribute here today to the work of Diane Hebb and the whole Creative Learning Through the Arts team and staff across the Arts Council who have made such an extraordinary start on this 5-year program. I'm chuffed to bits about it. I'm proud as punch. We've been working with lead creative schools, and we're now moving into a second phase which adds to this work across the curriculum a stream of funding for students to go and see arts events and exhibitions, and also funding for significant creative collaborations between schools and artists and arts companies. These collaborations can attract up to 90% of their cost to a maximum amount of $25,000. There's a long way to go, and at this stage, many teachers will be skeptical about how the educational revolution of this new curriculum will play out in its pioneering period from now till 2021, especially when there's so much pressure from the assessment processes that teachers constantly face. But come it will, and creative learning through the arts is showing the way. I've devoted a lot of time to this project because it's underway, it's groundbreaking, and it's been hard won in terms of funding and securing government commitment, not least in the fine skills and tenacity of my predecessor, Di Smith, in putting politicians up against a wall. But there's something equally significant emerging in an experimental way in the area of regeneration, in our challenging, exploratory, and partnership-based program called Ideas, People and Places, or IPP. This approach brings radical artistic and architectural design thinking to bear on key regeneration projects in 7 places across Wales. We've had plenty of evidence before IPP, of the regenerative power of the arts in partnerships with other agencies. One of the most inspiring and long-running examples of this in Wales is the impact of Gallery in Caernarfon. It's a centre with strong links with housing and social enterprise, which houses both the creative industries and key arts activity, including the music outreach and talent development work of Canolfan Gerdd William Matthias. It's also involved in one of the IPP projects at Celfyddydau, the old slate quay in the town. It's vividly apparent when you go to Caernarfon how Gallery's deep connectedness and skillful leadership has led and inspired the regeneration of what feels like a buzzy town for all the challenges it's facing. Anyway, IPP, Ideas, People and Places, is a bold, brave, and artistically ambitious process of artists and architectural activists bringing their visions into dialogue with the very different organizational imperatives and processes of partners like housing associations and local authorities, and even more crucially, with the views and aspirations of local people. It's a mutual learning process full of challenges and false starts and realignments. Exactly in the spirit of what Francois said this morning. But it's showing a more collegiate and imaginative way forward for renewing public spaces. I found it provocative and exciting, with high artistic ambitions in some cases, and an international dimension too with visiting artists. And this regeneration program is only one aspect of an increasingly rich arts involvement with cash-strapped local authorities. in which the Arts Council and other cultural advocates like What Next or the Creative Cardiff Network, backed by Cardiff University, are not just making the case for arts and culture, but advising and enabling. And we're also making a major contribution in arguing for culture spend and ambition in the City Deal proposals for new investment in the Cardiff Capital region and the Swansea Bay region, as we will in the A55 corridor ambitions mentioned by Ken Skates this morning. And as you may have discovered at lunchtime, talking to Sian and Caris, the Regeneration team at the Arts Council are driving some important work with the new public service boards and the pursuit of realizing the ambitions of the extraordinary but hugely challenging Well-being of Future Generations Act, where the arts are increasingly understood as being ahead of the game in learning and in practice. The key point about all this work, which I've been describing, is that it's marked by innovation, artistic ambition, a willingness to learn and take risks, and an understanding that some failures can be part of the process. It is emphatically not about bland instrumentalist practice. And the other striking thing to note is how impressed partners are by the skills and high levels of competence and understanding they find in artists, arts consultants, arts organizations, and the Arts Council. They should not be surprised. And a similar spirit will drive us forward in the area to which we'll be giving a lot of attention in the coming year, which is arts and health. Both the Health and Social Services Ministers in Welsh Government have taken a strong interest in visiting some of the many projects we support in this field, from organisations like Live Music Now Wales, Carmarthen-based Arts Care, and the Betsy Cadeirydd University Health Board, with projects like Arts from the Armchair in partnership with Theatr Clwyd. Obviously, there's a strong UK-wide development of practice in arts and health, and a growing body of evidence that arts interventions can have major beneficial impacts in areas such as dementia, mental health, and physical recovery. There's glorious work being done in dementia choirs, in care homes, in Dance for Parkinson's, and in creativity making pathways out of depression and isolation. It's happening every time people make arts in communities, of course. But these targeted interventions have a particular focus and sense of purpose. Evidence for the capacity of arts participation to work preventatively, and even to save the NHS money is stacking up. And we have leading practitioners and academics in the field across Wales. And the strong political interest in this subject is shown, as Ken said, by the creation of the cross-party arts and health group in the Welsh Assembly. I spoke at its first meeting recently and proposed our Arts Council view of a way forward. What do we want to achieve? Well, three things. One, to take our work and make great practice more strategically connected and delivered. Two, to make sure that it's focused on Welsh social needs. And finally, just to do more. Just to do more. We think that's the best way forward. The best way forward is to learn a lesson from Di Smith's report on the arts and education, which led to the Creative Learning Programme, and to do a thorough, funded piece of work, collating and analysing evidence for successes and impacts from growing arts and health work. Only with such an evidential base will we be on solid ground and be able to bid successfully into the health budget. This would be a major contribution to the well-being of Welsh people. It won't be work that will attract or draw the commitment of all arts practitioners. Why should it? But for those who do come to it, or build on their existing practice in the field, the satisfactions will be powerful and the impacts humbling. Before I close, there's one other area I want to signal as full of potential for the arts, and one that needs new ways forward. My own working life for well over 30 years has been largely spent in the creative industries, particularly in TV production. Now, we all know the massive contribution the arts make to the creative industries, as commissioners, as partners, as developers of talent. It's a growing and important sector across Wales with an estimated well over 30,000 jobs. My experience of the React Hub centred at Bristol's Watershed and of the growing network of the Creative Cardiff project have shown me the importance of artists to successful partnerships between higher education researchers and business and technical talents in the creative industries. It's often the artist that makes the partnership come alive and work. At the Arts Council of Wales, we are strongly involved with policy and active support for digital developments, for developments in the music industry, where we have a key talent development partnership with BBC Wales, and in film through our support for Film Cymru Wales. Community-based organisations we support are doing extraordinary work in these fields. I mentioned Gallery earlier, and I could add as other examples the work of Valley's Kids and Studio of Ranwen's Arts and Creative Digital Media Talent Development Programme, and its upskilling of NEET's young people. The relationship between the arts and the creative industries in Welsh Government has been opened up and a pathway encouraged in our current remit letter from Ken Skates. It used to be discouraged, but I'm glad to say now it's encouraged. We are already in dialogue with the key figures developing the Creative Wales vision for the creative industries in Welsh Government, and we must push on with this. So I'm keen, and my email and my door is open. I should never say this. I'm keen to get advice from the artists and organisations we support in film, digital, and the music industry, and particularly from our community-based organisations. I'm convinced that the development of talent and skills through the arts has a distinctive contribution to make in the growth of the creative industries. We know how to fan the flame of talent. We care about the individual voice and personal expression. And we understand that the way ideas fire, particularly in digital co-production and user-generated content, and then grow into creative businesses, is often not along the pathways of established economic modelling and predictors of success. And we also, you tell me often, have a lot of experience of seeing what's blocking the progress of talent we help develop into employment. So I'm looking to find ways forward in this area and would welcome your contributions and experience. All in all, it's a gobsmacking agenda and range of opportunities for the arts in Wales. It raises major questions for us at the Arts Council about capacity. And if you turn around, you will see Arts Council staff with nodding heads. Major questions about capacity and how we develop a culture of collaboration to make this happen with you, the arts practitioners, and with partners in local and national government, health, education, universities, and the creative industries. And it's an agenda that needs funding if it's to be achieved. We won't do it just by being smarter more focused, and more collaborative. It needs some dosh. But we will do it by being true to our artistic visions and values, and in an open-hearted and open-minded dialogue with audiences and non-professionals who join in making and creating. A last word. It's absolutely clear to me that what this needs is what this agenda needs is a kind of collective advocacy for the arts. I'm looking at a room full of advocates. We saw what a concerted campaign could achieve in the battle to protect culture spend in Cardiff Council. And all credit to the people who drove that. But I'm talking about more than particular campaigns. I'm talking about constant advocacy for the arts, the constant making available of stories about the extraordinary work of the arts and the difference they make to the spiritual and physical lives of the people of Wales. Don't assume it's obvious and self-evident. Capture it on smartphone video and share it. Let's make our work more widely visible so that no MP or AM or government minister or councillor or business leader is in any doubt that high-quality arts are fantastic and are making a huge difference to people across Wales. And let's make sure that all our citizens, young, old, LGBT or straight, of all ethnic backgrounds and religious cultures, or none, immigrants and refugees, all will know, because we're putting the story out there, and in our practice, that the arts are for them and belong to them, and are for them to make and shape. In our primary belief in the importance and power of the arts, and also our belief in and knowledge of their massive benefits to society, we need to dispel the notion that the arts are a nice to have but not essential, or a bit of icing on the social cake. They are central and definitive of who we are. And the arts in Wales are doing great work, and we can do more. But, brodyr a chwiorydd, we need to tell the story. Diolch am wrando. Thanks for listening.